I have not showered since Monday because I have been quarantining due to potential COVID exposure. Well, definite COVID exposure. I had close contact, let us say, with someone Sunday evening, and she tested positive for COVID and developed symptoms Tuesday morning. It's unclear as of yet whether I will contract COVID. I've had tests the last couple of days. They've been negative. I had a test today, this morning. I'm awaiting the results. I don't seem to have any symptoms, though, when you're paying attention, you can kind of find symptoms. It's probably worth saying that I am the opposite of a hypochondriac. I once checked myself out of a hospital against medical advice, only to be called on my cell phone an hour later and told that I was having a heart attack. Which I was not, by the way. They were wrong. But I should have checked myself out. I was having a fairly serious condition called myocarditis that could have been fatal. So, it's really, I'm 47, and I feel like this sort of youthful faith in my own invincibility is, not a good look at this age. But, so I'm not particularly worried about contracting COVID. I assume if I do, I will be fine. I've been vaccinated. But this still sucks that this happened, particularly because of the timing, because I really, really wanted to be spending this week hanging out with, I was thinking of a pseudonym, but let's go with a pseudonym. I'm trying to think of what pseudonyms I've previously used. I was really hoping to be hanging out with Hannah. No, I've used that with Charlotte. I don't think I've used that pseudonym with Charlotte. Yeah, that one feels right. Whom I've known, Charlotte and I met in 2017 at a psychedelic conference, which is where I tend to meet women at these conferences because I'm always performing. And I have a sort of unique role in the psychedelic. I hesitate to call it a community at this point because it's gotten so big. It's a whole universe in that I do comedy and solo shows at these events. Charlotte did not see me perform. I met her shortly after I performed and was immediately struck by just how attractive she was and is. And somehow, we wound up hanging out that night, and fairly early on I expressed interest, and she did not reciprocate that interest. But we kept hanging out, and I plied her with a couple of drinks. That sounds like it was for the purposes of loosening her defenses, which it was not. We went out. I don't really drink. She had, maybe it was just one drink. It was late. This party that I performed at ended late, and now we were out for a drink, and so I wound up walking her home to the place. She doesn't live in New York, though she previously had, and I wound up walking her to where she was staying, which we thought was going to be like a 20-minute walk, turned out to be like a 45-minute walk, and maybe it was some sense of gratitude. I don't think it was just that for me walking her. By this point it's 4 a.m. because we did wind up kissing and a little bit more in front of where she's staying. The kissing was fairly passionate, and I don't recall if it was her or me who broached the possibility of me coming upstairs, but that did not happen due to her. But I saw her the next day, and we had a nice time. It was daytime, she was leaving, we kissed a little bit. Yeah, there clearly was mutual interest. But I didn't really follow up on it. She was not living in New York at this point. She was a few hours away, getting her PhD in anthropology, but her focus is on ayahuasca, a very potent psychedelic, which I have a great deal of respect for and has been helpful for me. So anyway, she's super smart, extremely attractive. I don't know why I didn't prioritize. She invited me to visit her where she was at this university a few hours outside of New York, and I just didn't. Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, I could say the logistics weren't favorable, but that hasn't stopped me in the past. I've had plenty of long distance relationships. Yeah, I don't know. And who knows what would have happened if I did. She, though, did come to New York for another event, maybe, I don't remember, maybe 4 or 5 months later, and we wound up getting a drink, but it was at a time when I was particularly ensnared in an OCD crisis. I don't even remember oh no, I do remember. It wasn't exactly OCD. I had just launched a run of my solo show, The Mushroom Cure, at a big theater. Not big in terms of prestige, but in terms of capacity. Big for me. It's Theater 80, 190 seats. And I was having trouble filling it. And I was getting very discouraged and frustrated and obsessive about it. So maybe it wasn't OCD and that I was trapped in a particular decision, because that's my brand of OCD, decision making, but I was certainly ruminating. And when I'm in that state, when I'm obsessing, I'm closed off. I'm closed off because I'm not in the world. I'm in my own world. I'm in my own head. And so predictably, it wasn't a particularly gratifying hangout. And then I didn't see her for years. And then I was doing a guided mushroom journey. Couldn't remember if it was MDMA or mushrooms. The only guided mushroom journey I've ever done. I prefer to do psychedelics on my own or with friends, but this was a guide I had worked with. And on this journey, this was in the Bay Area, I was seeing another woman who I was quite fond of at this time. And I was thinking about this woman on this journey. And then I was thinking about why can't I fully say, what's holding me back from fully saying yes to a relationship with this woman, Sarah, who I was dating at the time. And I realized there was nothing. Everything was, we liked each other a lot. We didn't know we'd been dating for just a few weeks, but yeah, really enjoy each other's company. Yeah, I can say yes to this. And then, and I hadn't thought of her, I feel like in months, maybe over a year, Charlotte popped into my head. It felt kind of like, oh, I don't know if I want to walk away from that entirely. I don't want to know if I want to foreclose the options of having some sort of relationship with Charlotte, who I didn't even know where she was at that point in time. I might have known. She was in South America. She spent a lot of time there doing research. I shouldn't put it in quotes. It was research for her PhD, but research involved drinking ayahuasca and other plant medicines, as well as documenting and studying the customs and traditions and spiritual practices around that. So yeah, Charlotte popped into my head, and it was like, it was striking to me, even on the journey. So I finished that guided journey, and of course your cell phone is off the entire time, obviously. And I kept my phone off for a while after, but maybe 2 hours or so after I was more or less sober, I turned on my phone, and there was a text from Charlotte. And the time she had sent the text, I don't know the exact timing of, where I was at in the mushroom trip when she popped into my head, but it had to have been almost exactly that time. And the text was something to the effect of, I could find it on my phone, but it was something to the effect of either she had had a dream about me or I had just popped into her head unexpectedly. I think it was the latter. So that seemed not insignificant. And so the next day I called her. She was in South America. We did a WhatsApp call, and I told her about this journey. And I told her about this woman I was dating, Sarah, who I liked, but that I also felt like a part of me was curious about what a real relationship would be like with her. And basically Charlotte pretty much shot it down for two reasons. One, she didn't want to do the long distance thing. She's in South America. Two, she's actually seeing someone else there too. So I felt a bit of relief. There was no obstacle, as it was for me pursuing this relationship with Sarah. And I did pursue the relationship with Sarah, and that ultimately did not work out. And I did not intend to tell this story, but I guess this is the story I'm telling. So, yeah, we kept in touch, and I spoke with Charlotte. I'm a phone person. I don't think there are many people like this, many men at least, but I like talking on the phone. I have a wide network of friends and former lovers, and I keep in touch with them. Some I speak with quite frequently, sometimes, once a week or a few times a month. Others, it's more occasional. And Charlotte was pretty much in the heavy rotation. We spoke quite regularly. And I'm very transparent about my life with everyone. So she knows exactly what's going on with me. We spoke about relationships, we spoke about OCD, everything. And yeah, and there was talk of her visiting me a couple of years ago, but yeah, the logistics didn't work out. And then about a year ago, when I was in the Bay Area, she did come visit me. I was doing a writing residency in Point Reyes, this just staggeringly, mind-bogglingly, stunningly beautiful nature preserve on the coast of California. And I had this whole house to myself. Clara, the woman I was seeing at that time, was on vacation, along with her other lover. Not really, well, no, maybe a little bit relevant for the story, because it was an open relationship I was in with Clara. And so, yeah, I was curious, more than curious, to be spending this time with Charlotte. And she came down, and I didn't feel like there was any sexual chemistry there. Yet there did feel like there was a little bit of some sort of awkwardness, which to me is often indicates some attraction. Or maybe I just tell myself that, but it felt like, it didn't feel like a purely friendship vibe, but also I wasn't getting any clear signs of interest from her, nor was I necessarily feeling like a strong pull on my own part. So she was there, I think, just for a couple of days. And yeah, I remember one moment where we're outside just looking at the stars, just so many fucking stars, zero light pollution out there. And I'm like, maybe I should try to kiss her. And then I realized part of why I wanted to try to kiss her was just to figure out what's going on. Like, to see, like, oh, do we kiss? Is there something happening? Or does she turn her head away and there's nothing happening? Just as a way of testing the waters. But it didn't feel right, and I didn't do it. And I'm glad I didn't do it, because it didn't feel right. So, that was the last time I saw her. And then soon after that, things ended with Clara, and then for the next 9 months, I was at my parents' place in Brookline, Massachusetts, and Charlotte and I spoke on the phone even more frequently, several times a week often. Both of us were fairly isolated. She was living with her parents at that point in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was living with my parents, and yeah, so we grew quite close. And I opened up to her, really, at times when I was struggling. And then I was like, maybe it's time for me to go out to the Bay Area. Not because of Charlotte, because I always assumed I would go back there. I never intended to spend this much time with my parents, largely because of the nature there. I mean, the nature is just spectacular and easily accessible and underutilized, meaning I can find secluded, spectacular hiking and beaches easily there. So, but part of why I realized I was considering going out was for Charlotte. So I told her this. I was like, yeah, I'm curious, like, how do you feel about us? And she said, I don't know how I'll feel if we're together, but I don't feel like that doesn't feel like it's something that I want. I wouldn't come out for that reason. And I still considered coming out, but I didn't. So this is a part where I start getting really, I feel like I'm meandering. I realize these commentaries are not helpful. And this may just be par for the course. If I'm doing something without a live audience, telling me I'm doing okay, giving me that reassurance, which even though the OCD is a lot better, reassurance is so fundamental to OCD, and I think fundamental to comedians. So without that reassurance, there'll probably be a part of me that's insecure about how I'm doing, as well as the fact that having an audience forces me to be present in a way that a glass lens does not. So, I'm aware of the cost of these public acknowledgments of my insecurity, because it takes people out of it. So yeah, we kept in touch, and I'm in New York now, and it turned out she was going to be coming to New York for 9 days. And honestly, consciously, I didn't even really think of it as a factor. In fact, I was thinking I might not be in New York for these 9 days, because on the morning of September 11th, the recent anniversary, I woke up with a great deal of anxiety, not because of the anniversary, even though September 11th, 2001 was life-changing for me. The implications of that still reverberate through my life. But because I felt like maybe I shouldn't go back to New York. I was staying at my parents' just for a few days. I've been in New York for months, but I was visiting my parents, and I was supposed to go back to New York on September 11th, and I woke up thinking maybe I shouldn't, because it had been really, really nice being at my parents', in no small part because it's not just my parents. My parents live in a 2-family house with my sister and brother-in-law and my 3 nephews and my niece. 3 nephews and nieces collectively, ages 6 to 12, and they're just fucking magic. I mean, I get all kids are magic, but they're especially so. There's just so much love in that house, and so much comfort, and huge trees surrounding it. I mean, it's in Brookline, Massachusetts. It's in the suburbs. There's other houses within 8 feet in either direction, but there's trees everywhere. And my parents, who I also love, and my father, who has early stage Alzheimer's, and I want to spend time with him. And I was feeling really free with the OCD. Really free with the OCD, because it had been kicking my ass. Yeah, I mean, that seems to be the cycle. When the OCD is really bad, then when it passes, or when I let go, because I have agency, when I finally get some freedom from it, whatever OCD crisis is dominating me, when it finally ends, and I come out on the other side, there's often great freedom, because I see the OCD so clearly, and so I don't get sucked in. Because OCD, it's like a nightmare, but like a nightmare, when you're sleeping, when you're in OCD, you don't realize you're an OCD. That's not entirely true. I do realize I'm an OCD, but part of me feels like this is reality, like it's not just a bad dream. But in the moments, the hours, increasingly the days when I don't have OCD, I still have the impulses. I still have the intrusive thoughts telling me I'm making a big mistake, whether that mistake is I'm going on the wrong hike, or I shouldn't be going back to New York, or I should do this task next versus that task. Whatever it is, that voice is still there, but I don't identify it in the aftermath of the OCD. I see it very clearly for what it is, and I abstain, which means basically for me, not reversing my choices, no matter how uncomfortable it feels. And what I find is with a lot of choices, when I don't reverse, it feels very uncomfortable, but it passes quite quickly. Whereas if I do the thing my OCD wants me to do, which is reverse my decision, then I may get a little hit of relief because I'm avoiding this huge mistake, or what my mind is telling me is a huge mistake. But of course it just perpetuates the cycle, because then whatever I reverse to, that doesn't feel comfortable either. So there'd been some rough OCD, and coming out the other side, I'd felt great peace and great freedom. These moments where I'm like, oh, it really is like waking up from a nightmare. It's like, oh, just realizing people don't live like this. Other people don't live, maybe not continuously, I wouldn't say I'm continuously dogged by it, but continually dogged by the fear that I am making a mistake, that I'm not doing things right, and that even when things are good, there's a part of my brain, a not insignificant part of my brain, evaluating, could I be doing it better? Am I optimizing? It's fear. It's all fear. And suddenly not having that, it's just like life is so much, there's a clarity to life. It's so much easier. And feeling like I can live like this because I am living like this for increasingly longer periods. And it's really the answer to my prayer. I have many prayers, but I have usually a half dozen in rotation at any point in time. And one, I think the only one that has been in consistent rotation for the past 14 or 15 months has been, please increase my willingness to be uncomfortable. And I am more willing to be uncomfortable. I am more willing to stick with a decision and just feel the discomfort instead of reversing the decision, or even instead of going into my head and trying to evaluate, well, is it really the wrong decision? No, just feel it. Feel it in the body. But on the morning of September 11th, this most recent September 11th, that anxiety is there. And I know I just have to, if I want to stay at my parents' longer, that's fine too. But I just have to make the decision quickly and stick with it. But I don't. It doesn't totally take over because I do have a train to catch, so there is a time limit on the decision. But yeah, it gets pretty unpleasant. And in the midst of this, I talk about my September 11th, 2001 experiences in an Instagram Live. The same thing I brought into class last week, but the notes I got from class were very helpful, and I feel very uncomfortable doing it, to the point that when I finish doing it, it's about 40 minutes long, when I finish doing it, I have the option, do you want to post this to Instagram or not? And I'm like, no, fuck no. But I'd also, yeah, I'll get to that later. But I feel good about the fact that I did it, because when I look at this stuff, these Instagram Lives, and I guess this too, is even if no one else likes it, it's an exposure for me against my own perfectionism. So, I feel good about doing it, but as soon as I'm done, I'm back into, should I go back to New York? Should I not go back? But finally, I'm like, you know what, just go. Just go to New York. And you know what, you can come back 2 days later. Go to New York because I have a show that night, and because I have my Sunday dance parties, my outdoor Sunday dance parties, which are my favorite thing in the world. And yeah, Charlotte is going to be there, though that's not a major consideration. But it's like, you know what? I haven't seen her in a year. Why not see her? As I'm saying it now, it seems odd that I wouldn't at least prioritize seeing this woman, even as just as a friend. Maybe there was some fear there. Maybe there's some fear of intimacy. Maybe there was some sense of this could be significant. So I get on the train. But I feel wretched at that point, because the longer I engage with OCD about a given decision, the bigger, distracted by hunger. I woke up, I got a COVID test, I came back and I recorded this because I tried to record something last night and I was too in my head. And I was like, what if I just do it before I eat? How are we doing time-wise? 23 minutes. All right. So I'm on the train, so I get on the Amtrak, and I feel, yes, wretched, because if I had made the decision quickly, hey, I'm just going back to New York, then I know I'd feel a lot better. Because I'd spent several hours stewing in it, what I've done is I've ramped up the anxiety to a very high level. And now, on the train to New York, this just feels so wrong, even though before I caught this train, about an hour before, I bought a train ticket to come back to visit my parents on Monday. So I'm only going to be in New York for 2 days. The train ticket back is cancelable, but I'm potentially only going to be in New York for 2 days. Why is it such a big deal? But it feels like a huge deal. It just feels horrifically wrong. And one of the reasons my mind comes up with for why it's wrong is, well, yeah, if it wasn't COVID, then sure, go back to your parents in 2 days. But every time you visit your parents, you're subjecting them to a degree of risk. They have had their third booster. My father's immunocompromised, and they gave my mother one because she's living with him. So, not because of the Alzheimer's, obviously. He has multiple myeloma, a form of cancer that was considered inevitably and swiftly fatal until about 10 years ago. And now he's fine with it. It's in remission. But I don't need to go into the medical details. Anyway, I'm still subjecting them to risk. And my sister and her kids, the oldest has been vaccinated, but the two youngest haven't. So no, it's not that simple. I can't just go back to New York. I can't just go back to Brookline. I can, but I'm choosing to subject these people to a degree of risk. And why am I going? I was happy there. Why am I going to New York? And it just feels so fucking wrong. But I'll give myself credit, or I'll give God or whoever answers my prayers, some inner part of myself. That's a whole other subject that I'm not going to get into now. Because even though I'm feeling awful, I don't spin too much into my head. Yes, I do have these thoughts that I'm making a mistake, but I don't go into them as much as I often would have in the past, of really trying to reassure myself that maybe I'm not making a mistake, or really just thinking. Instead, I'm feeling, as I've prayed for, I'm feeling this profound discomfort. And of course, there's a part of me that knows this is not life or death. Well, it could be life or death if I give my parents COVID, but it's probably not life or death. It's probably not that important. This is the thing about OCD is, yes, there's a rational part of me that knows that it's out of proportion, but it feels life or death. Turning down this street or this street, if I'm in it, and I'm like, should I go down this street or that? And I start, when I turn down one street, and my brain says I should have turned down the other street because there's more trees, or the houses, the architecture is more interesting, or whatever reason, it feels like life or death. It really does. It feels like there's a form of mourning, a form of grief. So it's just so intense. And I try to do some work. I try to prepare for my show that night. I try, but I just can't. It's so overwhelming. The feeling is so fucking overwhelming. And I wind up sobbing. Just sobbing on an Amtrak. Which you can do, by the way. Interesting to me. No one stopped me. No one was like, are you okay? No one was like, you can't do that. You can just sob on an Amtrak. It wasn't a very packed car. There was no one, next to me or in a row right in front of me. And I tried, I put my head down, but yeah, there was audible sobbing. Just sobbing and praying and just, and I get into New York. I go to the apartment, my friend's apartment, where I'm house sitting. And it all feels so wrong. And when I get to this apartment, I really let it rip with a full-on sob, just complete, just 5 minutes of just wailing. And when I'm done with that, I'm like, how the fuck am I supposed to do stand-up comedy now? I just feel so broken. I'm a 47-year-old man sobbing on an Amtrak. I've never seen anyone do that. I'm the dude who just can't maintain to the basic level that everyone else can. Broken. Irrevocably broken. But the show must go on. It bears mentioning it's not just me. It's a showcase show, standard New York City stand-up format where, there's 5, 6 comics, and I'm the last one, and I get on stage. Well, so I get to the club, and I ask the manager, how are they? And he says, they're sad. And I feel a bit of relief because I'm like, if they were a good crowd and I had to meet them at this high energy, like for some reason it's reassuring to me that they're sad. And I say, because of September 11th? And he says, probably. And I say, have any other comics talked about 9/11? And he says, no. And so I know what I'm going to do. And I get on stage, broken, sad, and I'm just a person. I tell them about my September 11th story. I tell them about how my girlfriend was in the North Tower, how she made it out, but how, because of those events, indirectly, our relationship ended because I encouraged her strongly to see a therapist for the evident trauma she had, and that therapist encouraged her strongly to tell me about an incident of infidelity that really, I don't see it as a huge deal, but it gave me an excuse to be very angry at her. And it was very comforting being angry. Anger is a much safer emotion for me than sadness and grief. I think it is for most people. I think that's why we do anger, because we don't want to experience the sadness and grief. How are we doing with time? 29 minutes. All right. If we're still watching this, thank you. And yeah, I do get laughs too. I do get laughs too. I'm genuine. I'm real. And this is the reason I've been trying to quit stand-up. This is what I've been saying. I didn't think I was going to do stand-up post-lockdown. I've had ambivalence about it for years. But I keep doing it because I feel like part of it is ego. I feel like I am doing something unique up there. And I do something unique up there that night. And part of it is because I value that connection. And I like being silly. This is why my nephews and nieces love me so fucking much. Because I am so silly with them. I'm constantly making up little games and little jokes and little puns. And well, not puns so much, but sort of the analog of puns, like little plays, yeah, I could give examples. I want to keep us on target. So I like being playful. I like being silly. I like being a clown. I like being a fool. And I get to do all of that in stand-up. And I like being myself, and I can do that in stand-up too, in a way that I think most comics can't, or probably better put, most comics aren't willing to, because they feel like they need to make people laugh. And of course, I feel that need too. All right, focus. So, I get off stage, and I feel good. The truth is, I felt a little bit better after that big sob already. And some other comics, friends of mine, are going to another club, but I'm not really feeling that. I don't really want to be alone. And so I text, Meredith. That doesn't feel like an appropriate pseudonym for her, but all right, whatever, we're going with Meredith. I text Meredith, a woman whom I'd met a few weeks before, and I like her energy. I don't like that phrase, I like her energy. What does that mean? But like, I noticed her, I was at this party, she walked in, and there was this sort of, she was bright and smiley. And we've hung out a few times, and it doesn't feel like it's a deep connection, but yeah, I like her. I would leave it at that. I don't super like her, but I like her. And so I text her. She, I think it's safe to say, she very much likes me, and she always responds to my text immediately, but she doesn't respond. And I'm kind of like, all right, that's probably for the best. And so what I do is I walk out of the comedy club alone, and I go down to the new World Trade Center. And I look at it for a bit. I don't feel much of anything. I really just feel exhausted, all the sobbing. And then I walked to where Annie and I lived soon after September 11th. Annie, my ex, who was in the North Tower. The love of my life, the one whom I'm still in some way not over, even though I don't think about her much. The one, incidentally, that guided mushroom journey was indirectly because of her, because I realized years ago that, yeah, I still haven't properly mourned that relationship. And someone suggested a guided MDMA journey for processing essentially the trauma of that loss. And then that same guide I did the mushroom journey with. So Annie and I, soon after September 11th, we moved to this huge loft in Tribeca because real estate prices were lower there. And that's when the relationship started to change from this incredible, blissful honeymoon period to more challenges. In part because our upstairs neighbor, as I've recounted before, was 3-time Tony Award-winning tap dancer Hinton S. Battle, and I do not do well with sound. And maybe in part because we were living together, even though we'd spent virtually every single night of the past 9 months prior to that together. Or no, at that point, past year together. So I walked to the apartment we lived at. They've renovated it. And then I walk a block up to the liquor store bar, which was where we first met, where I was first introduced to her. And the liquor store bar is and has been for a long time a fucking clothing boutique. One of these obnoxious places where there's like, you know, it's not huge, it's maybe, I don't know, 1,200 square feet, but there's like 9 shirts hanging in it. So they each have to be like $4,000. but they still have the bar there. Inside, I can see through the plate glass windows, and they still have the original sign, this big neon sign, liquor store. And I don't feel anything deep or profound, but I'm feeling increasingly peaceful. And I'm feeling increasingly strong. Because I fucking did it. I stuck with my decision. I came back to New York and I felt the feelings and I didn't go into the obsessions. And yeah, it's fucking hell when I'm in it. But more and more, I'm just in it. And as long as I'm fully in it, it seems to pass fairly quickly. And so I've been in touch with Charlotte, of course, about potentially hanging out that night, but I'm exhausted and she's far in Brooklyn. So we don't hang out, but we talk for a while and I tell her about sobbing on the Amtrak. And I tell her about feeling better, and we make plans. She's going to go to Mr. Sunday with me, my Sunday daytime dance party. All right, I'm feeling like I'm taking up too much time, 35 minutes. So I'm going to, now I'm thinking like, what if I just do this live for class? I'm recording this, might as well share this. So, and the next day, I feel really good. I feel really fucking good. Yeah, I'm getting better. I'm getting more freedom. It's hard won, but I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I feel strong. I feel healthy. And so I do my Sunday ritual, which is smoke, well, not a lot of weed because I'm a lightweight, but get very, very high on a high-grade sativa precisely 2 hours before I head to the party. Why 2 hours? Because the initial rush of being high is actually not conducive for socializing and dancing. Weed lasts a long time for me, even when I smoke it. So it's better that I'm alone. I can do some writing, and then I go, and so I meet Charlotte at the party, and as I'm in line for the party, I notice there's so many other beautiful women there, and I have a thought that I had before, which is like, do I want Charlotte to come to this party? Is she going to cramp my style? Because this is where I meet most women in my life, is this party. She shows up, Charlotte, and she is beautiful. Probably more beautiful than anyone else there, but still it's a party that's like, guys, this is going to cramp my style, and it feels like it's a little awkward, our interaction, but also I'm high, and I'm feeling insecure about time and tired, frankly. I've been talking for a while. All right, I'm going to limit this to another 8 minutes, which will put us at 45 minutes, though maybe less because maybe I'll have a chance to edit this a little bit. So, Charlotte, where are we? Come on. Basically, we have a fucking great time together at this party. And I brought some ketamine for her. Something I don't love, and I rarely do it, but in the psychedelic community, it's kind of, a friend of mine calls it psychedelic crack, or psychedelic blow. You know, it's, because you can, you can kind of titrate the dose and get a little bit of a short-acting psychedelic experience that kicks in quickly. And Charlotte, like many people in the psychedelic community, is fond of ketamine. I don't think she buys it on her own, but when it's on offer, she'll partake. And so I brought some for her, and I do a little bit too. And I find like it doesn't enhance dancing the way weed does for me, but what it does, or maybe it's just familiarity, spending more time with each other, but suddenly like I'm just really enjoying Charlotte's company. Yeah, I'm not going to give too much credit to the ketamine because I've obviously enjoyed connecting with her. I've spent hundreds of hours, maybe 100, maybe 1,000 hours on the phone with her over the last year or two. And so now I'm thinking what to edit out. Yeah, and more I'm like, there is something here. And she tells me about another guy who she's really into, but he lives in London. And Charlotte also tells me that she really has trouble expressing her feelings, which is something I didn't know about her. She'd never told this to me before. I knew in general she was sort of cynical about relationships, but she tells me that, and I encourage her, I'm like, tell this guy how you feel. Like, it's someone she's hooked up with, it seems like he likes her. And initially, when she tells me she's into this other guy, I actually say, I'm like, okay, good. So then I can hit on other women here with impunity. And she's like, well, yeah, of course. So it's kind of like, it's reassuring in a way because it's like, okay, nothing's happening with her. But yet, as we continue hanging out, I'm like, there's something here. I'm feeling something. I like her a lot. And it doesn't feel like an overtly sexual vibe, but it also does not feel like a friendship vibe. And it's like, yeah, what would it be like if we really went for it? I have strong feelings for this woman. And there's another party after this daytime dance party. Someone else in the psychedelic community is throwing this rooftop party in the East Village. And even though Charlotte is exhausted, jet lag, and she's been hanging out with friends, she's like, yeah, I'll come till like midnight. And she has to teach a class. She's a university professor. She has to teach a class the next morning. She's like, all right, I'll come. But by the time we leave this party, because I'm flirting with these other women, it's late and Charlotte is like, no, I'm not going to come now. I would have come, but I'm not going to come. And I'm a little disappointed, but whatever. I'm going to see her. We're already making plans. She's here for another week and we're going to see each other multiple times. And it does, yeah, it feels like something is happening. I'm very, very, very excited about meeting this woman here. Not meeting her, spending this time with her. And it just feels like, and it feels like in a way it's related to my newfound freedom. Like, yeah, I can just, because I'm all over the place now, at the party, I just remember this, I did have some intrusive thoughts where I was like, yeah, I don't know if I should be spending all this time with Charlotte. Maybe I should just kind of leave her and try to meet other women here. And then I was like, no, say yes to what is. Just say yes to what is, which is another prayer of mine, the willingness to say yes to what is. And what is there's this woman here now who I'm engaging with, and don't get too caught up in what might be or could be. So I feel really good. Meanwhile, Meredith had texted me while I was at this party. And so now on the subway, I text her back. I want to talk more about Charlotte. I'm feeling a lot of tenderness too, because she's also told me that her parents are getting divorced at age 71, and it just feels good supporting her, being there for her. And yeah, I'm feeling, my heart feels like it's opening to her in a significant way. But I text Meredith as I'm on the subway to this party. And it turns out Meredith lives like 3 doors down from this party. I go to this party, I'm in a great mood. I'm kind of the life of the party. Several people there have seen the mushroom cure and they rave about it. But there's no particularly alluring woman there. And yeah, I do want to see Meredith. I'm a half block away. Like, I don't know. As I told Charlotte about Meredith, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm probably just going to stop hanging out with her, but I'll hang out with her one more time. And this is convenient. She's a half block away. And so, to accelerate this story, we do, all right, real acceleration. I wind up having sex with Meredith, and I'm quite ambivalent about it. It's a couple of hours of us kind of kissing, hanging out, and me like in trying to decide. But finally I decide, you know what, why not? It feels good being with her physically like this. I'm attracted to her. Why not? So I decide, yes, I'm going to do this. And as soon as I decide that, of course, my mind is like, oh, maybe you shouldn't. But no, I stick with my decisions no matter what. And so we do. We have sex. And it's surprisingly good considering we're using a condom and we don't know each other that well. It's fun. But I do feel some like, why did I do that exactly? I don't feel great about it. And the next day, of course, I'm talking to Charlotte, and she's maybe going to come by my place for a little bit, but there's only a narrow window because I have an obligation that night. And she winds up not coming, but even though she doesn't come, we still talk on the phone for 20 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, I really fucking like this girl. And we're planning on, I'm just going to wrap. We're planning on hanging out the next day. And the next day, I wake up, and I have some OCD about should I go hiking with Charlotte or should we talk about going shopping together. But it's getting late, and so I text her about going shopping, and she's like, yeah, I'm super into that. I'll meet you in 40 minutes. And then I get a text from Meredith. So this is Tuesday now. I hooked up with Meredith Sunday night saying, I'm so sorry. I woke up feeling shitty, and I just got a COVID test, and I'm positive. She'd been vaccinated, by the way, and had COVID pre-vaccination. So, oh man, we haven't even gotten fuck. All right, maybe I can edit this. I'm fairly devastated. I call Charlotte. I tell her the truth. She asks, like, was it good having sex with this woman? I was like, yeah, it was pretty good. And she's like, all right, well, at least there's that. And she's like, it's not. And I was like, I'm just really disappointed. I really wanted to spend this time with you. And she's like, well, it's not a huge deal, like maybe in a few days. And anyway, I'll probably be back soon. And I'm like, yeah. And I get off the phone and I just, fuck. The grief is so fucking intense all day Tuesday. But I'm not going into my head. I'm not doing what I call imaginary comparisons. I even have an abbreviation, IC, that I use in my journals. And an imaginary comparison is simply comparing the reality I find myself in with an imagined alternate reality. And so in this case, the temptation, as I'm sitting alone in this apartment, feeling fine physically, no symptoms. Well, I wouldn't have developed symptoms yet. But imagining what would it be like right now with Charlotte? Like we'd be wandering around the city together. I've never had that experience with her. That would be so much fun. We'd get dinner, and then, yeah, maybe something romantic, sexual, physical would happen. At least I'd find out. So I do a little bit of that imaginary comparison, but not that much. Instead, I'm just feeling the fucking awful, horrific, horrendous feelings, the grief, the unspeakable grief that this woman who could be, because this is, and it clarifies for me the intensity of this grief, but it clarifies for me how important it is, how much I do want to be in a partnership. And it could be with Charlotte. I mean, of course it could be with Charlotte. We're close friends. I find her super attractive. I'm attracted to her. And I think Sunday was significant because we found out something new, which is that we actually have a lot of fun together, socially, like out. So it feels like a huge loss. It is a huge loss. Though I will say this quality of intense grief comes up even when it's like I should have walked down that street or this street. It's not as intense, but that quality, the grief element, that seems central to the OCD. And I feel like that may be related to some trauma. So, and I pray. See, prayer, for me, it works if I really fucking mean it. And I really mean it because I'm like, no, I'm not going to go into regret. I'm not going to go into beating myself up. I mean, of course, it feels incredibly stupid to have hooked up with this woman who I don't have any real feelings for and don't see any connection with. Oh, and I do want to mention, I told her this before and she's like, yeah, that's fine. So it wasn't like I was, misleading her in any way. It is important for me clearly that I tell you that I not be thought poorly of. So, but yeah, I mean, and now I'm not going to have this experience with Charlotte. But I don't want to go into the regret. So I pray, please give me the willingness to really feel this loss and help me surrender regret. Just let go of regret. And that prayer is largely answered because I do feel the loss. It just fucking hurts all day. I cry a little bit at points, just feel wretched. And then I wake up Wednesday morning and I feel wonderful. Wednesday, not once do I have a moment of regret. I'm just not worried about anything. I feel incredibly free. If things are going to happen with Charlotte, they'll happen with her eventually anyway. And if I get COVID and I get sick, whatever. I'm just not worried. It feels like this profound spiritual experience where I'm just completely trusting in the universe. It's quite euphoric. But yesterday was more difficult, and I think part of why it was more difficult is I haven't heard from Charlotte. I'm astounded. It's now Friday. This was Tuesday when I found out about the potential COVID risk. And she's not called or texted me once. This is inexplicable to me. It hurts. It hurts, but it's also just inexplicable. To the point that as I'm saying, I'm like, maybe something happened to her. I don't know. I was thinking that, presuming I'm negative, and I've gotten tests the last 2 days, and I got a test this morning. I don't have symptoms. So if the test this morning is negative, it's a PCR, the more reliable test. I'll get results in a few hours. Then I think I re-enter the world, and I think I do shows tonight. But I was thinking of telling Charlotte, hey, why don't you stay in New York longer? You can stay at my place. I have this huge 2-bedroom. Now I don't know what to make of it. Yeah. All right, I think I'm going to wrap there.